everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to talk about Fast X and its opening box office figures for the period of Friday the 19th of May to Sunday the 21st of May 2023. So we'll get straight into it then with the numbers, and within US cinemas, the movie had a somewhat decent opening at the time of making this video of around 67 to 69 million opening weekend, taking the top spot away from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which dropped to number 2 after a 2-week reign at the top. Internationally, the movie made far more impressive numbers, with a huge approximate total of around 251 to 253 million. This gave the movie a global opening of around 318 to 320 million worldwide. Now, this is the second biggest global opening of 2023, behind Super Mario Bros., which made 377 million when it was released in April this year. So when we look at these numbers, what does it say about the Fast and the Furious franchise? Is it still as strong and potent as ever? Well, a 320 million worldwide opening is strong for any blockbuster. No studio at all would be complacent of this particular opening. What's more for interesting debate is the performance within the US. We could look at that $67 to $70 million opening and argue that is somewhat of underperformance. When we look at the recent entries within the franchise, Fast X has actually been one of the lowest openings. Even Too Fast and Too Furious, the second installment of the franchise way back in the early 2000s, had a bigger opening weekend. Now, whilst we wouldn't expect the heights of the 147 million opening that was reached within Fast 7, and to be honest, that was probably inflated by the tragic passing of Paul Walker. But despite being post-pandemic, I would have expected a higher number than 70 million, considering that Fast 9 achieved that total during closer proximity of the pandemic era. So is this total a case of fatigue? Well, if it is, it wouldn't be surprising, because if we look at the Fast and Furious movies, they follow a very standard formula, even more formulaic than the Marvel films. Every installment looks and feels the same. We have the same regular cast members, for the most part, with 2 or 3 additions. We get the typical villain who becomes an ally in the following sequels. So whilst that familiarity helps maintain a brand recognition with audiences, you know by now what you're going to get with these films, but also that leads to the fact that there are no surprises. And with each installment, Universal just seems to amp up the formula every single time. So if you didn't like these movies before, there's nothing here that will change your mind. And let's be clear here, post Fast 5, the critical reception for these films hasn't generally been that good. And all of these factors is probably what has caused the decline in the domestic box office. Now, fortunately for the franchise, the overseas numbers are doing just fine. And as always, the international numbers is where the franchise truly shines. And its latest installment proves again that the overseas audiences still love all of the movies, especially in China, which has always been the biggest territory within the franchise. And again, within this installment, that's proven to be the case. But overall, the movie managed to make over 251 million overseas. So as long as the international numbers are very strong and the US domestic numbers are at least decent, then the franchise still looks in good overall health. Now, we do have to factor that massive budget of 340 million, which I still can't believe, to be honest with you, even for a movie such as big as this. So if that budget figure is to be true, then this movie will have to gross $1 billion to really see any amount of substantial profit. So following that, we do ask the question, will it go on to become the second $1 billion film of 2023 after Super Mario Bros.? Well, we'll have to see how well it performs in its second and third weekend to get a better idea, but it will likely be out the 720 million plus gross for Fast 9. It should maintain the top spot within the US for the second week before we have a whole host of major releases coming forward for the next 2 months. But so far, I would say Universal are probably still pleased with the opening weekend of the movie, but they will be keeping a very close eye on how the movie performs in the second and third weekends. So speaking of good health, we then talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which continues to have very good holds within the US territory, only dropping 48% in its third weekend for a total gross now of just over $266 to $268 million. So after all of that negative debate and commentary following its opening weekend, it has somewhat debunked to an extent the narrative that the MCU is dead or doomed or finished. It's a bit of a brighter hope, I would say, for Phase 5, though not a complete and satisfactory appraisal that every movie now will be further successful. There's still further debate to be had on that. But in terms of Volume 3 itself, it's looking now that it will likely hit 300 million in the US, which is very good overall for the movie. Globally, the film now stands at around 659 million, so it has a very good chance of reaching around 800 million, which I think is a good result for any Marvel film currently at this phase 5. That's probably the standard that you would expect to see. We saw that particularly in 2022 with the likes of Multiverse of Madness and Thor Love and Thunder, which just came short, and also Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which also hit over 800 million. So I think if we are to say that the MCU is still in good state, we would expect to see certainly the popular characters hit this type of numbers, and then any new characters probably hit around 600 to 700 million. If we see those figures in the future, that's when we can say that the MCU is as close to being back on track. But of course, we will have to wait and see the further movies that come out. So in terms of Guardians in the Galaxy, whilst $1 billion will likely be out of reach, especially with multiple big releases pending that I've mentioned before, it's still overall, I think, a very good result and probably puts off the despondent talk of Marvel for now. But I'm sure that will all be ready to be started up again when we approach the release of the Marvels later on in November 2023. So there's my overall thoughts and feelings on the opening box office performance of Fast X and the continued strong performance of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Where do you think this leaves the Fast and Furious films going forward? Do you think it's still on for Vin Diesel's suggested trilogy of movies, or do you think they should really do one more and then leave it there overall? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you have any further suggestions regarding any other movies, television series, or any other topics within the pop culture and entertainment scene that you'd like to see me cover, then also let me know within the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on those topics within the future. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.